Prismatic is the newest subclass in hit game Destiny 2. I've spent the past 4 weeks making as many builds as physically possible for this subclass, 10 for each class. Basically, here are the hunter ones. Liar's Handshake, Combination Blow. Now I'm sure you're all familiar with some version of this build already, but here is mine. I go with Combination Blow plus Grapple with Stylish Executioner and Winter's Shroud. Protection, Purpose, Sacrifice, Courage, Ruin. I've also got Tether on because none of the other supers are really that great when it comes to DPS. Silence and Squall is solid though, and if you want to go Goldie for a Nighthawk hot swap of some kind, go knock yourself out. The basic loop of every Prismatic Combination Blow build is dodge near enemy, melee, dodge near enemy, melee, repeat. Liar's Handshake is a very nice pairing here since it gives a massive damage boost every other melee attack. The AoE isn't quite as good on Prismatic as it is on Arc, but Winter's Shroud isn't awful, plus the actual damage you'll be dealing is way higher due to Liar's Handshake, and then obviously you've got the invisibility for survivability as well. If you've been farming exotic cloaks, Caliban's with either Synthos or Liars solves the AoE problem completely, but I'm sure you're already aware of this. Celestial Nighthawk DPS. You can either use this as a neutral kind of pre-DPS build or just a full-on DPS build. I've adapted this build specifically to be a bit of both. Threaded Spike with Magnetic Grenade. Aspects are Stylish Executioner, Gunpowder Gamble. Protection, Purpose, Balance, Dawn, Dominance. You're going to see a lot of protection purpose, I'm afraid. Obviously our super is going to be Golden Gun. Your weapons and Threaded Spike should carry you through any pre-DPS phases, but when it comes to actual damage you have an easy Weaken, Radiant and Darkness debuff to proc Courage. Obviously Still Hunt and Apex are going to be incredibly good here. This is arguably the best DPS build in the game right now, so definitely save this one. Next is a build that's a little less meta but equally as fun. Strand Grapple Ability Spam with Syntheseps. In theory you can use many different class item combinations here, but mine is Inmost Light Syntheseps. I'm using Threaded Spike and Grapple, Stylish Executioner, Gunpowder Gamble, Protection, Purpose, Balance, Awakening, Honor. I chose Silence and Squall for this build since Frost Armor is a solid buff and the super itself is also pretty solid. Storm's Edge is also decent this season due to galvanic armor in the artifact, however I probably wouldn't recommend it for anything outside of this season. Your Threaded Spike deals very good damage when surrounded thanks to Synthos, but even without them it can still one-hit a lot of red bars. You've also got your Grapple, which can unravel. It's basically a Strand Titan build but on Prismatic Hunter. It's quite nice. Silence and Squall Spam with Galinor. This is a build I designed for Nightfalls based around the Spirit of Galinor perk on the exotic class item. Dealing damage with the super will refund said super. I'm taking both Snare Bomb for Weaken alongside Duskfield for Slow. For aspects, I have Stylish Executioner and Threaded Spectre, which will take aggro from the enemies. Protection, Purpose, Devotion, Solitude, Ruin. Now how you play this build should be pretty self-explanatory. You weaken stuff with Smoke Bomb, you sever them with rapid precision hits, and use Threaded Spectre as a decoy in panic situations. Galinor itself will give you a chunk of your super back after it ends, allowing you to basically throw a lot of supers. Speaking of a lot of supers, Orpheus Rig is an exotic that can be used very effectively on Prismatic too. For this build I'm going with Threaded Spike and Duskfield to lock down an area. Think choke points in Onslaught, which is probably where this build will see the most use for me personally. Stylish Executioner, Gunpowder Gamble. Protection, Purpose, Balance, Grace, Generosity. Grace is particularly good here since we get significant chunks of Transcendence energy for super kills, which we'll be getting a lot of provided you don't keep putting your tethers in really awful places. Generosity also helps your teammates if they need energy for their supers. Balance of Power Combination Blow. Now this is a variation of the Liars build that trades single target for damage for massive amounts of AoE. Our abilities are Combi Blow and Grapple, and our aspects are Stylish Executioner and Threaded Spectre. Protection, Purpose, Sacrifice, Balance, Hope. Every time you dodge in the Combination Blow loop, you spawn a Threaded Spectre which explodes, releasing an improved number of Threadlings. An advantage of this build over Liars is that you get a decent amount of both light and dark Transcendence energy, since Threadlings charge dark and melees charge light. A 1-2 punch shotgun is more necessary on this build though, since it'll struggle against tankier enemies otherwise. Gunpowder Gamble is a very cool aspect. Aga's Scepter is also a very good weapon this season since they buffed the shatter damage. Verity's Brow gives Gunpowder Gamble some viability since it increases grenade damage. I'm going with Threaded Spike and Duskfield Grenade for this build. This grenade is important because your grenade needs to match your weapon damage type to create death throws. For fragments, I'm taking Stylish and, most importantly, Gunpowder Gamble. Fragments are Protection, Purpose, again, Ruin, Balance, and Mending. Super is Silence and Squall. Build stacks of death throws with Dagger's Scepter, throw Duskfields and melees to charge GPG, throw GPG for big damage. In case you were wondering, it doesn't matter that Gunpowder Gamble is solar and our death throws are stasis, the grenade damage boost will still take effect. Assassin's Cowl Combination Blow. Now, the Stylish Executioner aspect makes this exotic pretty redundant, however, using this exotic makes Stylish Executioner pretty redundant. You're missing the Weaken from Stylish, but gaining the heals from the Cowl as well as the additional aspect slot and fragment slot. The aspects in question are Winter's Shroud, of course, but also Threaded Spectre. The fragments in question are Protection, Purpose, Courage, Sacrifice, Awakening, Honour. I'm using Combi Blow and Grapple with Silence and Squall as my super. Compared to Liars with Stylish, this build is a lot more comfy to play. Is it better? Not really, but it might suit some people's playstyles slightly better due to the consistency of Assassin's Cowl. Not to mention, Assassin's Cowl is a perk on the exotic class item too, allowing you to pair it with Synthos or Liars for big damage. Gifted Conviction, Damage Resistance Stacking. Threaded Spike, Arcbolt Grenade. Silence and Squall Super, Stylish Executioner, Ascension. Protection, Purpose, Dominance, Balance, Hope. Jolting enemies with either Ascension, your grapple, or a Volt Shot weapon will give you damage resistance through Gifted Conviction. Picking up an orb grants Frost Armor through Facet of Purpose. Facet of Protection also gives us damage resistance, and due to the current artifact, we also get damage resistance while amplified due to Galvanic Armor. While there are pretty substantial diminishing returns on all this damage resistance, you still just won't die. That said, there aren't really a lot of situations where DR stacking is actually necessary. You could argue it's useful in a GM potentially, or maybe a contest or master raid, but then again, more offense is usually the best strategy in this game. If you need damage resist but don't want to sacrifice your offensive capabilities, just swap your special to a glaive, or even Ergo could work. And finally, Gyrfalcon's Void Weapons plus Threaded Spike. This was the build I played through most of the campaign with, since I could essentially copy-paste my old Void build into Prismatic and have it work to a pretty high level. I've gone with Threaded Spike and Duskfield Grenade alongside the aspects Stylish Executioner and Gunpowder Gamble. Ascension or Winter's Shroud could also work here since you are applying elemental debuffs, therefore giving you invisibility and therefore giving you volatile rounds. I went with Silence and Squall as my super, and Protection, Purpose, Solitude, Generosity, and Balance. Solitude is particularly interesting because you can debuff a target without using any abilities, meaning the Gyrfalcon's loop can get going immediately. The one disadvantage of this build compared to Mono Void is the lack of Devour, making survivability more difficult. However, Buried Bloodline is an exotic that can give you Devour on any subclass, essentially making this build a direct upgrade to the original Void one. That was 10 supposedly insane Prismatic Hunter builds that you should definitely try out. Warlock video next week, maybe, possibly, probably, bye.